What if I told you that there is a remake that the creator of the original himself called Watching the Rape of His Own Mother, that the producer who greenlit this project later publicly admitted? This film destroyed the original in every way and should never have existed, and that the filmmakers, trying to please a mass audience, turned one of the most brutal and philosophically profound horror films into something so sterile and toothless that it was dubbed the most unnecessary horror remake of all time? Today, we dissect the film that became a tombstone on its directors' careers and a stain on Blumhouse's reputation. Martyrs by Kevin and Michael Goetz, 2015. The film that was supposed to introduce American audiences to a masterpiece of French extreme cinema, but instead buried its legacy in the abyss of Hollywood mediocrity. Welcome to Justney. We dive into the darkest, most scandalous depths of cinema, where ordinary film critics fear to tread. Today, we're breaking down the remake that enraged not only fans, but the original creator himself. Subscribe so you don't miss new investigations, and hit like if you enjoy us exposing Hollywood's failures. The roots of this scandal go back to 2008, when French director Pascal Laugier released his film Martyrs. It was a film that instantly became cult. Laugier wrote the script in a state of deep clinical depression, bordering on suicidal thoughts. That's why the film is soaked with such hopeless nihilism and despair. It was so provocative that in France it received a rare ban for under-18s rating, sparking heated debates and even the threat of economic censorship limiting the number of copies in release. The American distributor, the Weinstein Company, was so shocked that studio head Bob Weinstein, according to rumors, in horror, skipped a theatrical release and sent the film straight to DVD. The original was not just a horror movie. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of suffering, about what lies beyond death, about the meaninglessness of sacrifice. In the finale, when the main character, having endured inhuman torture, whispers something into her tormentor's ear, and the tormentor, upon hearing it, puts a bullet in her own head, the viewer is left utterly bewildered, wondering, what did she say? That finale is the most powerful scene in the entire film, and it's what transforms the picture from horror into something much greater. And yet, despite all this scandalous baggage, Hollywood decided America needed its own version of Martyrs. Development of the remake began almost immediately after the original's release in 2008. The first director attached was Daniel Stamm, and Twilight star Kristen Stewart was even considered for the lead role. But due to budget problems, the project languished in development hell for years. Ultimately, the rights to the remake were bought by Jason Blum's studio, Blumhouse Productions, known for its low-budget horror films. And here begins the real intrigue, which turns into tragicomedy. In 2015, the studio hired directors, and that was their first fatal decision. Who were they? Kevin and Michael Goetz, twin brothers who had mostly made short films and music videos. Their most famous work was the low-budget horror film The Uninvited from 2009. And suddenly, they were entrusted with the remake of one of the most controversial films in genre history. The brothers later admitted that they were aware of fans' concerns and possible negative reactions, but their job was to focus on the script they were given. They claimed their version was more of a reimagining than a remake, hoping it would shed light on the original. But behind this diplomatic phrasing lay disaster. The Goetz brothers faced an insurmountable problem: how to make an American film out of a French masterpiece built on merciless violence and philosophical existentialism, while still fitting within Hollywood standards in an R rating. And they failed this task spectacularly. The shoot was rushed and, by Hollywood standards, almost inhuman. Principal photography took place in Los Angeles in early 2015. The entire production cycle was squeezed into 16 days. 16 days for a film that was supposed to convey the full depth and brutality of the original. That's absurd. For comparison, the original French film was shot much longer, and the actresses underwent 2 months of rehearsals to get into the right emotional state. Moreover, the original shoot was so grueling that one of the actresses, Morgiana Alaoui, broke 3 bones in her leg falling from a 3-meter height, shutting down production for a month. Nothing like that happened on the American remake. The lead actresses, Troian Bellisario and Bailey Noble, were not given time to immerse themselves in their roles. They just had to get the material done. That's why the film looks like a cheap TV thriller, not a deep psychological horror. One critic later noted that the film had the look of a TV movie: cheap, sterile visuals, lacking that oppressive, claustrophobic atmosphere that made the original so powerful. Scenes that in the original were shot using natural light and shaky camera work, creating a sense of reality, became flat and lifeless in the remake. But the main tragedy of this film unfolded not on set, but around the script. The script was written by Mark L. Smith, known for his work on Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. But even his talent couldn't save the situation. Instead of transplanting the original story to American soil, the creators decided to completely reshape it. They turned a philosophical parable about suffering and transcendence into a banal revenge thriller about a cult. In the original, the film is split into two sharp halves. First, it's a revenge story, and then it evolves into something much deeper and more shocking. The remake adapts the first half more or less faithfully, though significantly watered down, while the second half completely deviates from the original. Gone is that surreal, almost metaphysical brutality that made the finale of Martyrs unforgettable. Instead, audiences were offered something boring and predictable. One critic put it this way: they significantly reduced the violence and destroyed every aspect that made the original so good. Another went so far as to call the remake a family action film compared to the original. The most astonishing part: the creators removed almost all the brutality. In the original, violence was shown in your face, shocking and merciless. In the remake, it's only hinted at, never shown. The ending, which in the original is the most memorable and shocking part, is here merely gestured at but not depicted. That's like making The Godfather without any murder scenes. Instead of the iconic finale with the mysterious whisper, we got something so bland it's impossible to remember. And so, in this bloodless state, the film hit screens. The premiere took place at the Sitges Film Festival on October 9, 2015. And then a real scandal erupted. Critics were merciless. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film scored just 9% approval based on 33 reviews. The audience score was even lower, 16%. Critics accused the film of exploiting heavy themes like torture and violence without any depth or meaning. Users wrote that the remake destroyed the original and that we will never talk about it again, and never in the same sentence as the original. But the most devastating blow came from Pascal Laugier himself. He stated that selling the rights to the remake was the only thing he regrets in his career. He didn't get a single cent from it due to a poorly drafted contract, and his name is now associated with this trash film. He tried to watch the remake but only lasted 20 minutes. It felt like watching my mother being raped. Then I stopped. Life is too short. That statement went viral worldwide and became the calling card of this cinematic disaster. He added that in the American system, a film like his original is simply impossible. They saw his film and turned it into something completely uninteresting. Even producer Jason Blum, whose studio released this remake, later admitted it was a mistake. He said the remake destroyed the original in every way and should never have existed. This admission from the producer himself is a rare case in Hollywood where a creator publicly disowns his own film. The film grossed only $1.50 million at the box office on a budget that, though undisclosed, given Blumhouse's model, was modest. Even by low-budget horror standards, it was a flop. The film was almost instantly forgotten, leaving behind only a bitter aftertaste and a pile of negative reviews. One critic, Stacy Lane from the New York Post, wrote that the film is so bad it can't even entertain in a so bad it's good way. But even in this chaos, there are dark, dirty details that make the story even more piquant. First, casting rumors. Initially, when the project was first announced, Twilight star Kristen Stewart was being considered for the lead. If that had happened, the film would have drawn huge attention, but most likely would have been an even bigger disaster. Stewart ultimately didn't participate. There were also rumors about other actors, but they all crashed against the rocks of development hell. Second, who hated and set up whom? Laugier himself was furious not only at the remake but at the studio system that, in his view, mutilated his creation. He publicly destroyed the work of the Goetz brothers, which undoubtedly dealt a blow to their reputation. After that, the brothers virtually disappeared from mainstream cinema. Third, the irony. The American remake, which was supposed to humanize the story, actually stripped it of all humanity. The original was brutal, but it made the viewer empathize, feel the pain of the characters. The remake turned that pain into something sterile, almost comical. The sad irony. The remake's creators claimed their film has a glimmer of hope in that these two women will do anything to survive. But that hope was fake because it was ripped from the context of genuine suffering. In the original, there was no hope, only hopelessness, and that's what made it so powerful. Expert analysis of this film is an analysis of how not to make remakes. What worked well? Perhaps only the acting. Troian Belisario and Bailey Noble did everything they could with the material they were given. But even their performances couldn't save the film from failure. Where did the film fail? In everything. In direction, in the script, in the atmosphere, in the lack of courage. It failed as a remake, as a horror, and as a drama. How did the scandals affect its reception? They made the film not just bad, but legendarily bad. It became a symbol of how Hollywood can destroy great art. Why did it become a cult film? It became cult because of its awfulness. It's remembered not as a good film, but as an example of how not to make a movie. It's like a Razzie in the world of horror. If the original Martyrs is considered a masterpiece and ranks among the best horror films of all time, the 2015 remake often appears on lists of the worst remakes in history. Martyrs 2015 is not just a film. It's a cinematic corpse that refuses to die. Not because it's good, but because it became a cautionary tale. It's a story about how human greed, the cowardice of studio bosses, and the desire to cash in on someone else's success can destroy a work of art. This film changed the industry by showing that even the most successful remake can fail if it's made without soul and without understanding the source material. Did it destroy careers? Rather, it damaged the reputations of the Goetz brothers, who after that only made a few minor projects. It became a stain on Blumhouse's reputation, though the studio quickly recovered and continues to release successful horror films. But for fans of the original Martyrs, this film will forever remain a symbol of betrayal. Pascal Laugier never got any money from this remake, but he earned the moral right to call it trash. And you know what's the scariest part? This film could have been good if the Goetz brothers had dared to do more, if the studio had given them more time. If they had kept the ending and the brutality, maybe we'd be talking about a different film. But they didn't dare, and we got what we got. And today, nearly 10 years later, we still ask, why? Why was this remake needed? The answer is simple: for money. But as history shows, even money doesn't save you from creative disaster. Martyrs 2015 is a reminder that sometimes it's better to leave a masterpiece alone than to try to improve or Americanize it. It's a film that teaches us to respect the original and not be afraid of subtitles. American audiences are capable of appreciating French cinema with subtitles, as proven by countless other films. But studios keep believing that without a remake, a foreign film won't sell, and every time they're wrong. On Just Sneak, we love digging into such stories. If you want to learn more about the dark side of Hollywood, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about which film you think was the most unsuccessful remake in history. And I'll sign off now to prepare new investigations for you. Remember, wherever it smells of sulfur, there's always a story they tried to hide. See you.